It's 4 o'clock. We're about to call to order.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get this hearing started. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy the requirements of the Planning Act and Council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters of the subject properties. In addition, a public notice sign has been posted on the lands. Agencies commenting on the applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should the application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The process for tonight, the purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and mailing address for the record. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. All interested parties are invited to be present. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any person who files a written request. There are colored forms for this purpose which are available on the back table. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Municipal Board within 20 days of the decision for minor variances and within 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent applications. This time I'd like to introduce the hearing panel, Mr. Don Cook, Mr. Brian DeMartle, our clerk, Nancy Bizzato, and Judy Shepherd. And sitting in tonight is Barb Weens, the Director of Planning. Before we go any further, does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications being considered at this hearing?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No, Mr. Chairman.
I have none as well. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
None that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair, but I would recommend that committee consider hearing the 2 consent applications prior to A3, just so that the applications seem very straightforward. So
Okay.
we would need a motion for that.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Okay. Okay. So, with that out of the way, we'll get started on file A2 2016P for William and Lynn De Bruin.
Or the
Sorry?
The Kaiser application?
No, we'll do the minor variance first on the agenda, and then Kaiser, and then go back to
Okay.
Azor.
Right.
So Mr. and Mrs. De Bruin are present in the audience. If they could come to the staff table here.
Yes, please come have a seat and state your names for the record.
William De Bruin.
Lynn De Bruin.
Ms. Bizzato, could you read any of the correspondence?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. The subject land is located on the west side of Cream Street, north of Kilman Road, being part of Lot 12, Concession 4, and known municipally as 2200 Cream Street in the town of Pelham. The subject land is zoned agricultural A in accordance with the town of Pelham zoning bylaw, and relief from section 7.7A is requested to permit a lot coverage for accessory buildings of 2%, whereas 1% is permitted, and from section 7.7B to allow for a building height of 4.8 meters to the midpoint of the pitched roof, whereas 3.7 meters is permitted to enable construction of an accessory building for vehicle and lawn equipment storage. The applicable planning policies include the provincial policy statement, which designates the subject land within the prime agricultural area. Permitted uses in this area are agricultural, secondary uses, and agriculture-related uses. Policy 2331 states that new proposed secondary uses and agriculture-related uses shall be compatible with and shall not hinder surrounding agricultural operations, and these uses shall be limited in scale and criteria and shall be included in municipal planning documents as recommended by the province or on municipal approaches which achieve the same objective. Under the Greenbelt Plan, the lands are designated as tender fruit and grape lands in the protected countryside. The subject land is located outside of the Niagara Escarpment Plan area, thus not subject to NEC development permit control. Policy 4112 for non-agricultural uses indicate that proposals for non-agricultural uses must demonstrate that the use is appropriate for the location in the rural area, the type of water and sewer servicing proposed is appropriate for the type of use, there are no negative impacts on key natural heritage features and/or key hydrologic features or their functions, and that there is no negative impact on the biodiversity or connectivity of the natural heritage system. With regard to Policy 4.5, existing uses, it states that all existing uses lawfully used for such purposes on the day before the Greenbelt Plan comes into force are permitted, and single dwellings are permitted on existing lots of record provided they were zoned for such as of the date of the Greenbelt Plan coming into force, or where an application for an amendment to a zoning bylaw is required as a condition of severance granted prior to December 14th, 2003, but which application did not proceed. Under the Regional Official Plan, the lands are designated as unique agricultural area in the protected countryside. Policy 5B6 reflects Policy 4.5 of the Greenbelt Plan. In unique agricultural areas, single dwellings are permitted on existing lots of record, provided they were zoned as such December 16th of 2004. The Town of Pelham's 2014 Official Plan designates the subject parcel as specialty agricultural. According to Policy B222, the principal use of land shall be for the production of a full range of specialty crops identified in the Greenbelt Plan, and permitted uses include, among others, agricultural uses, single detached dwellings, accessory residential uses on farm properties in accordance with Policy B2135, and it is noted that despite being zoned and located in an agricultural area, the subject property is small for the area and is considered to be a rural residential use that existed prior to the Greenbelt Plan coming into effect. Under the town's zoning bylaw, the bylaw identifies the subject parcel as agricultural A, and permitted uses include agricultural, including greenhouses, one single detached dwelling on one lot, uses, buildings, and structures accessory to the foregoing permitted uses, and Section 7.7, requirements for the building and structures open accessory to dwellings, maximum lot coverage of 1% is permitted, and a maximum building height of 3.7 meters. The Planning Department reports with regard to the 4 tests relating to a minor variance. First test, the variance is minor in nature. The proposed lot coverage will be marginally larger than the existing A zone requirement of 1% for accessory buildings. Considering the parcel size of 0.79 hectare, the variances can be accommodated with minimal impact. No negative impacts are anticipated by the adjacent neighbors, as adequate distance buffers the surrounding uses from a slightly taller structure. Secondly, the variance is desirable for the development or use of the land. The variances are desirable for the property in question, as the addition will allow for proper storage of vehicle and lawn equipment with minimal impact, allowing for the appropriate development and use of the property. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The increase of the maximum accessory building lot coverage is minor overall, and the size of the proposed building is appropriate given the rural context, and still ensures that the dwelling is maintained as the main use of the land. Ample amount of open space is available on the site, thus the increased lot coverage and height will not adversely impact the rural residential nature of the lot or the surrounding countryside. Both variances maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw with respect to accessory buildings. And the 4th test, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The proposed use of the detached garage is permitted in the agricultural designation, and the variances are appropriate given the site's context and meet the intent of the official plan policies. On January 14th, a notice was circulated to agencies directly affected by the proposed application, including internal town departments, and all assessed property owners within 60 meters of the property's boundaries. To date, the following comments have been received. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority offers no objection. The Public Works Department has no comments. The Building Department indicates that all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing. The Niagara Regional Planning Department indicates no record was found for the existing sewage system servicing the site, and no visible defects were noted at the time of inspection. The proposal will not encroach onto the existing sewage system, and sufficient land would remain for any future upgrades to the sewage system which may be required. The region has no objection to the proposed application, providing the living space and fixture units are not installed within the garage. Town planning comments. Planning staff note that the subject land is designated specialty crop agriculture and considered high importance with respect to the Greenbelt Plan area. However, the property is too small in size and is an existing rural residential lot. The proposal will not have a negative impact on the core natural heritage of the watercourse running across the northern limits of the property, and the proposed garage falls outside of the regulated Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority lands. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 variance tests laid out in the Planning Act. The application is consistent with provincial policies, the regional official plan, and conforms to the general intent of the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. The authorization of the minor variance is not expected to generate negative impacts for adjacent uses or the community at large. Consequently, planning staff recommend that the application, file A-2-2016, be approved, subject to the conditions that all necessary demolition permits be approved by staff for the proposed removal of the existing greenhouse, and all necessary building permits be obtained prior to construction commencing for the new accessory building. The remainder of the comments have all been summarized in the planning report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would you guys like to add anything? Tell us about your project?
No.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any questions, comments, concerns for the applicants? Okay. Members, questions, comments, concerns?
I have no comments.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Waiting for a motion here.
I believe we are.
That we accept the motion, of course, on the following conditions: that the demolition and the building permits before they continue construction on the site. The 4 minor variances are accomplished. They're laid out. It is minor. The size is large. When I was out there, I had no questions to ask at all. It seems that the intent of the zoning bylaws are maintained and the official plans maintained. And I think it is advisable to have a storage area, particularly in that situation that you're in. And we haven't received any objections.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay, and so now we'll move on to the applications for consent. Ready? Okay. Starting with file B5 2016P, Stephen and Robin Kaiser. Seated and state your name for the record.
Stephen Kaiser.
Madam Secretary, is there any correspondence?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Planning Department report is submitted as follows. With regard to file B5 2016, the subject parcel is an interior parcel of land lying east of Hay Street, north of Regional Road 20, being part of Block P Plan 717, and known municipally as 1541 Hay Street in the former township of Pelham, now in the town of Pelham. This application is made for consent to an easement in perpetuity over 8.15 square meters of land to be used as a drainage and servicing easement and to the benefit of the abutting lands to the east of the property. 7,919.75 square meters of land will be retained for continued residential use, and the applicant is concurrently seeking consent for a contiguous easement through file B6, which I will also describe at this point. This subject parcel is an interior parcel of land lying east of Hayes Street, north of Highway 20, or Regional Road 20, and known municipally as 1545 Hayes Street. This application is made for consent to an easement in perpetuity over 346.4 square meters of land to be used as a drainage and servicing easement to the benefit of the abutting lands to the east of the property, with 3,561 square meters of land to be retained for continued residential use. The applicable planning policies are the same for both applications. The subject parcel is located within the settlement area under the provincial policy statement. The provincial policy statement specifies that the focus of development will be within the urban settlement areas, and development shall provide a range of densities, a mix of land uses, and opportunities for infill and intensification. Next is the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe 2006. The subject parcel is located within the urban settlement area, and built-up areas are to be the focus of new growth for communities. Policy 2221, population growth, is to be accommodated by directing major growth to settlement areas that offer municipal water and wastewater systems, and limiting growth in settlement areas that are serviced by other forms of water and wastewater services. Policy 321, infrastructure planning, states that water and wastewater systems will be coordinated to implement this plan. The applicant is seeking an easement to permit proper drainage and sanitary connections to the existing municipal system in order for the neighboring condominium development to proceed. And under the regional official plan, the official plan designates the subject parcel as built-up area in the urban area boundary. And under the town's official plan, the lands are designated as urban living area within the built boundary. The principal uses of land are for existing or planned residential development and complementary uses on full municipal services. Under the town's zoning bylaw, the subject lands have three different zones applicable, being R1, R1-165, which includes the existing dwelling, and the southeast corner of Part 1 is zoned Residential 1 R1 239, according to the zoning bylaw as amended. The R1 zone, being Part 4, still remains vacant upon viewing the 2015 satellite imagery. The permitted uses would include one single detached dwelling, uses, buildings, and structures accessory to the foregoing uses, and home occupations. The R165 zone of Part 1 includes the existing single detached dwelling, which permits a bed and breakfast establishment and the associated special provisions specific to that use. The R1-239 zone of Part 1 isolates a small parcel of land on the southwest corner, which still appears to remain vacant. This amended zone, formerly zoned R1-165, removes the use of a bed and breakfast establishment and all associated provisions specific to that use. Notwithstanding the permitted uses under Section 13.1 of the R1 zone, the use of lands shall be subject to the provisions under Section 13.2, with the exception of the minimum north interior side yard. Section 239C, separate from the current application, the owner of Part 1 would have had to enter into a development agreement with the town, agreeing that no building permit could be issued until the control architect approves the building drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development. Agency and public comments. On January 14th, a notice of public hearing was circulated by the Secretary-Treasurer to the applicable agencies, town departments, and all assessed property owners within 60 meters of the property's boundaries. To date, the following comments have been received from the Public Works Department of the town, no comments, and the Building Department has no comment at this time. Under planning staff comments, it must be noted that the same application and the concurrent B6 2016 are a repeat of files B1 2012 and B2 2012, which were previously approved but lapsed due to failure to legally register the easement conveyances. Planning staff is of the opinion that the proposed easements for both file applications are acceptable and will permit a drainage and servicing easement to the benefit of lands to the east. The adjacent lands requiring the easement are currently and prospectively subject to a condominium and site plan application for townhouse development. The easement will enable the abutting development to the east to be properly serviced and drain stormwater runoff. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans, and recommend that the applications each be granted. Mr. Chair, all of the other comments have been summarized in the planning report.
Thank you very much. Do the representatives have any comments they'd like to add?
Hello, Mr. Chair. As you've heard, this is deja vu all over again. I think we both thought it was going to be registered, but it didn't get registered, so we're back here to go through the process. We're very supportive of the development that Rob and his brother Ed are doing next door, and this is part of the process of helping them. There's no compensation for the easement. We realize it's needed and helpful to the development.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on this application? No? Okay, members, questions, comments, concerns?
I have no question.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the variances be granted, or not variances, consents be granted, subject to conditions certified concurrently with, depending on which one, B5
Should we
would
do
be
this?
concurrent with B6. The lawyer provide the secretary treasurer with a legal description and reference plan, and the necessary fees be paid to the secretary treasurer. So that would be for B6. The same would be concurrently for B5, Madam Secretary.
Do a vote twice?
So you're making a motion to approve both applications?
Both
Mr.
applications,
Member?
B5 and 6.
Then we don't need to
All
vote.
costs associated with fulfilling conditions of consent shall be borne by the applicant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
No, I'll second.
Second, I need a seconder.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, please don't forget to register.
Oh, we'll try.
Okay.
Would like your fees.
Yes. Don't forget to pay. So with the consents done. Got the papers, I won't go. You good?
Yes. People silence their cell phones.
Okay. All right, so let's keep our cell phones silent, and we will then move on to file A3 2016P for Stoyan and Mary Zorik.
And I believe that we have an authorized agent, Mr. Lesdow.
Here as well, okay. I gotta ask them to come up first. If you guys say yes, please come and take a seat. Any requests? We did that. Okay. Are you ready with the correspondence? Okay. Madam Secretary Treasurer, if you could please read the correspondence.
Take a big breath first.
Okay.
Application A3, 2016, with regard to 1298 Pelham Street. The subject land is located within the southwest corner of Pelham Street and Pancake Lane, being part of Lot 1, Concession 9, and known municipally as 1298 Pelham Street in the town of Pelham. The subject land is zoned residential multiple 2, RM2, in accordance with Pelham zoning bylaw 1136/1987 as amended. Relief from section 6.161 is requested to permit a reduction from the Pancake Lane street line setback for parking area to 1.5 meters, where 7.5 meters is required, and from section 6.16L2 to recognize an existing accessory structure to be used for 2 vehicle parking spots located 1.41 meters from the west lot line, where 3 meters is required for a parking structure. The applicable planning policies: under the provincial policy statement, the lands are located within the settlement area according to the PPS, which provides that the focus of development will be within settlement areas, and the development shall provide for a range of densities, a mix of land uses, and opportunities for intensifications, taking into consideration existing planned infrastructure. Under the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the subject parcel is located within an urban settlement area. Built-up areas are to be the focus of new growth for communities. Under section 1.2.2, guiding principles for the Greater Golden Horseshoe is based on the following principles. build compact, vibrant, and complete communities, plan and manage growth to support a strong and competitive economy, optimize the use of existing and new infrastructure to support growth in a compact, efficient form. Under 2.2.2, population and employment growth will be accommodated by directing a significant portion of new growth to the built-up areas of the community through intensification, reducing dependence on the automobile through development of mixed-use, transit-supported, pedestrian-friendly urban environments, encouraging cities and towns to develop as complete communities with a diverse mix of land uses, a range and mix of employment and housing types, high-quality public open space, and easy access to local stores and services, and directing major growth to settlement areas that offer municipal water and wastewater systems, and limiting growth in settlement areas that are serviced by other forms of water and wastewater services. Judy, can you just grab that new letter that came in today? I'm going to need that. Under the Regional Official Plan, the Regional Official Plan designates the subject land as built-up area within the urban area boundary. Regional policies also support intensification in urban communities with the focus of growth and development being within built-up areas. Policy 9C17 states that the region, in conjunction with local municipalities, shall establish and require compliance to minimum setbacks, parking facilities, and design requirements, and policies consistent with the function of regional roads. The subject land is not situated on any regional road or within 46 meters of one. Being outside such a regional road catchment area, no considerations are required to be applied to parking facilities for local development in this case. Under the town's official plan, the subject land is located within the urban living built boundary area of the town's official plan. B111 states that the purpose of the urban living area designation is to promote the efficient use of existing and planned infrastructure by creating the opportunity for various forms of residential intensification where appropriate. B113 states that the town will assess how issues such as landscaping, access, parking, utilities, and maintenance have been addressed in the proposal. While intensification opportunities will be encouraged, proponents will be expected to demonstrate, through the provision of a detailed site and elevation plan, that such proposals will be respectful of, compatible with, and designed to be integrated with the community or neighborhood where they are proposed. Under the town zoning bylaw, the town zoning bylaw identifies the subject parcel as residential multiple 2. Section 6161 states that notwithstanding the yard provisions of the bylaw to the contrary, uncovered surface parking areas shall be permitted in the required yards as follows. For an apartment dwelling, parking areas are permitted in all yards provided that no part of any parking area other than a driveway is located closer than 7.5 meters to any street line and no closer than 3 meters to any side lot line or rear lot line. Section 616L2 states that where a parking area located in a structure is accessory to a permitted use on a lot, then such structure shall conform to all the provisions of the accessory uses as set out in subsection 1 of this section. The Committee of Adjustment in Section 45(1) of the Planning Act may authorize a minor variance from the provisions of the bylaw subject to the following considerations. Firstly, is the variance minor in nature? Under the explanation from the Planning Department, the reduction of the setback of the parking area adjacent to Pancake Lane from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters will have a minimal impact on the site or surrounding properties. It is noted that the landscape buffer has previously been approved for a reduction in width from 3 meters to 1.5 meters and is subject to appeal. However, it is staff's opinion that the 1.5 meter landscape strip will provide an adequate landscape buffer that will aid in screening the parking area from the street and will enhance the Pancake Lane streetscape. Currently, there is minimal landscaping along Pancake Lane. It is also noted that the parking area is oriented in such a way that parked cars do not abut the street line, but rather the aisleway. This helps minimize the visual impact of parked cars in the parking area. The reduction in setback of the accessory building proposed to be used for parking from 3 meters to 1.41 meters will not result in any change to the physical location of the accessory building. It will continue to be located in the existing location where it has achieved a degree of fit. It is also screened from adjacent properties by existing vegetation that will not be impacted by the requested variance as there is no physical change. The reduced setbacks proposed for the development's parking facilities have a marginal impact on the site and surrounding areas and can therefore be considered minor in nature. The second test, is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The reduced setbacks for the proposed parking area along the north property line and for the accessory building to the southwest corner of the property will provide for sufficient parking space to meet the needs of residents and visitors and is desirable for the development of the land as proposed. The use of the accessory building for parking also minimizes the impact of parking on the site, and the orientation of the parking areas along the north property line minimizes the impact of parking from the streetscape perspective, both of which are desirable for the use of the land. Is the variance maintaining the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The planning report suggests that the proposal maintains the general objective of the zoning bylaw by providing sufficient parking spaces to meet the purpose of the minimum parking requirements and the intent of the bylaw to provide for adequate setback and separation of parking areas and structures from property lines. There is adequate space still available with the reduced setback to maintain an the existing accessory building and the existing vegetation buffer. The north property line also provides adequate separation of parking from the street line that allows for a 1.5 meter buffer space between Pancake Lane and the parking aisle. And the final test, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The two proposed variances do not compromise the intent of the official plan. Sufficient parking is provided, along with amenity area, and staff have assessed the conceptual development plan and found no concern with the reduced setbacks as it relates to the intent of the official plan. On January 14th, a notice was circulated to agencies directly affected by the proposed application, including internal town departments and all assessed property owners within 60 meters of the property's boundaries. As a note, Mr. Chair, the circulation also included anyone who requested additional information on the previous file, so we didn't just include the 60 meters, we went to other interested parties as well.
Thank you.
To date, the following comments have been received. The Building Department, all necessary permits are required prior to construction commencing, and the Public Works Department has no comments. Under the planning comments, planning staff understand that the application is not seeking relief from section 5.122 defining parking area, but note that the definition clarifies that a parking area includes aisles, parking structures, and parking spaces, but does not include any part of a street or lane, and the requested variance is to permit a reduction to the setback of the parking area, including aisles from Pancake Lane, from the setback of 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters. It is also noted that the existing accessory building was constructed as a storage building and does meet the setback requirements of the bylaw for an accessory storage building. However, as the use of the accessory building is changing from storage to parking, the bylaw has a different setback requirement for accessory buildings used for parking as opposed to storage, and that is why a variance for the bylaw is now required. The accessory building is not being relocated any closer to the property line and will remain in its current location. It is also noted that variance were previously granted by the committee on July 7th of 2015 as follows: a parking aisle reduction to 6 meters on the north side, a reduction in the planting strip to 1.5 meters on the north side, parking aisle reduction to 6.5 meters on the south side, a reduction of side yard setback for the existing parking structure to 3.25 meters, and side yard setback reduction for the new building to, and it was actually approved at 5.9 meters, not 5 meters. Two appeals to the Committee of Adjustment decision were received and are pending an Ontario Municipal Board hearing that will be scheduled sometime after the Committee of Adjustment makes a decision on this current application. Planning staff notes that the applicant did consider a different layout of the proposed building, which could be accommodated on the site that addresses the bylaw requirements. That development would not be as desirable as it places parking in the front yard, thereby reducing the amount of landscaped open space, amenity area, and taking away from the streetscape and public realm, which is desirable. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The subject application is consistent with provincial policies, the regional official plan, and complies with general intent of the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. It is also noted that the proposed development would be subject to site plan approval from Town Council prior to any development proceeding that will deal with such matters such as site servicing, grading, drainage, building elevations, etc. The authorization of the minor variance is not expected to generate negative impacts on adjacent neighbors, users of Pancake Lane, and on the community at large, so consequently planning staff recommend that the application be approved. If members will turn to the comments, Mr. and Mrs. Lang have requested a copy of the decision and write the following. In 1963, my wife and I moved to this neighborhood on Pelham Street, and periodically there has been a plan to disrupt the attractive residential area. First was the town's approval of the Woodstream subdivision on the former Fond Hill Nurseries property. It was planned to join Hay Street with a major roadway through the subdivision to Pelham Street, halfway up the grade of the hill. The location would create a dangerous intersection at any time of the year, but particularly in winter. It would also cut through and destroy a group of majestic and mature beech trees needlessly. An OMB hearing was required, and the representative for the OMB made an on-site inspection of the problem in question and stated, there's no way a road should come out here. I was there to hear it personally, and consequently the plan was changed to the present form. A few years later, Donald Dixon had purchased a property on Pelham Street south of Merritt Road with plans to build a new funeral home. A developer owned the lot where the Peddler Funeral Home sits today and planned to build a strip plaza there. Again, the objections of the neighbors were successful in preventing this disruption to the residential area. Mr. Dixon and the plaza developer swapped properties, and his funeral home was built on the present location, which is now Peddler's Funeral Home. Once again, this neighborhood and its residents are threatened as there is a proposal to build a 4-story apartment building, which would not only have a disrupting appearance visually, but would also be in violation of existing requirements that others have had to meet. Some of the variances have been noted. And there is a question about the need for a new fence on Pelham Street and Pancake Lane. Why, what type, and how high? The setback parking requested is 19.5 feet less and closer to Pancake Lane. The proposed open-air pavilion with a barbecue at the front. There are questions about who would use this, but that is not part of the application. Will party noise at the outdoor pavilion be an issue? Proposed signage at the corner of Pancake and Pelham has no description, size, or appearance. Depending on the size, shape, and location, it is a possible hazard for blocking the view of traffic along the new proposed fence at a busy intersection. The west side of the property would encroach 5.2 feet closer to the property line. The proposal will result in a loss of considerable green space, which now absorbs a significant amount of rain and melting snow. Other parking lots, including a school and churches, have been required to have catch basins. The plan mentions catch basin provision, but at present there is no storm sewer on Pelham Street. Where will the water go in the meantime? Due to the minimum number of parking spaces provided by the plan, visitors and those with more than one vehicle will have to park on the streets. When there is visitation or a funeral at the Peddler Funeral Home, this will be a problem just waiting to happen, as both sides of Pelham Street are lined with cars at these times. Has a fire lane been provided for the south of the existing building and access for the ladder fire truck to reach the new 4-story building? Plans show multiple parking spaces in that area. And the present building, a 2-story 11 unit, with a new building 4-story 12 units, with 2 extra stories and 1 more unit. They question if this makes any sense. For the record, the fire department was circulated on the applications. Comments received from John and Donna Shell. We object to both Variance 1 and Variance 2 as requested by the applicants and feel that neither should be granted. On July 7th, 2015, the Committee of Adjustment heard application A4 of 2015, and included was a letter dated June 25th from Don Larkin and Sigrid Christensen, which questioned the 7.5 meter setback from the street line on Pancake Lane. This issue was not addressed by the applicants nor their representatives. The Committee of Adjustment reduced the buffer from 3 meters to 1.5. And narrowed the parking aisle from 7.3 to 6.5. To now request that the variance application be adjusted to match the reduced buffer of 1.5 is in effect to request that the following bylaw be deleted in its entirety, and that being zoning bylaw 1136, section 616, parking area regulations, subsection 1, parking area location on the lot. And the zoning bylaw is cited that reads all yards, apartment dwelling and boarding house dwellings. Parking area is permitted in all yards provided there is no part of any parking area other than the driveway located closer than 7.5 meters to any street line or no closer than 3 meters to any side lot line or rear lot line. We believe this is more than a minor variance as it negates the purpose of the parking area relationships in regard to adjacent street lines. We would ask that the applicant and their representatives were given ample opportunity to address these issues prior to and on the July 7th hearing. They not be given further variances on matters and concerns that they were aware of but failed to address at the previous hearing. The application comments on the municipal property on Pancake Lane in that it provides a wide area of green between the asphalt of the road and the parking area should the variance be approved. There's an indication, reference 5, why is it not possible to comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw? Municipal-owned property should not even be considered to be included when asking for variances when developing private property. The municipal portion of the green area being referred to is comprised of a narrow strip of lawn with 2 trees, a sidewalk, and an unsightly ditch in which the grass is not continuously maintained and is home to debris such as bottles and cans. Future reworking of Pancake Lane, such as wider sidewalks, road widening, adding shoulders, a right-hand turn lane, a bicycle lane, etc., does not guarantee the future existence of this narrow green space in its present form. As regards to the potential usage of the green space on Pelham Street for parking, this will further enhance the major drainage issues, as even less land will then be available to absorb water. With the proposed apartment building and potential parking lot on Pelham Street, all of the green space that currently fronts onto Pelham Street will be gone. As this land is at a higher elevation than that across the street, there will be more and faster water runoff as there will be no grass or soil to slow down and absorb the water. There is no infrastructure currently on Pelham Street in which catch basins can be tied into, nor is there a ditch to contain the water. We live directly across the street and currently do not experience any water issues, nor do we want to have any as a result of the proposed plans of the applicant. The placement of parking on the northeast corner of the site facing Pancake Lane and south along Pelham Street will block the sight lines of vehicles approaching and at the intersection. Comments with regard to variance 2. As the current accessory shed is going to be used as a garage, at some point, it is highly probable that the applicants will want and or require an accessory shed to maintain their property. Will there be adequate space for one, and if so, what size? Will another variance be requested? The current accessory shed is built to building code standards applicable to 2004 when the structure was constructed. It is 12 years old and potentially in need of updating and repair. The building code standards have been revised in 2012, so codes need to be adhered to, especially when changing the use of a building. The application stated in Section 5, why is it not possible to comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw under Variance 2, that this is impractical considering the structure has existed since 2004 and is in perfectly good condition. It appears that cost is a major issue in not wanting to comply with the bylaw, and this is not a valid reason. Only an opinion is stated as to the condition of the shed. Factual evidence presented upon inspection from a certified independent inspector should only be used as the true measure as to the condition of the structure before a decision is reached. A variance should not be granted, and proper parking structures should be constructed at a proper location meeting bylaw standards and building code standards. Correspondence from J. Abbott of Pickford Place. I am writing to register my concerns regarding the application for minor variance relating to the proposed apartment building at 1298 Pelham Street. The concerns revolve around traffic on Pancake Lane and safety at the intersection of Pancake and Pelham and on Pancake Lane itself. Pancake Lane has become a major thoroughfare for traffic between Pelham and Hay Streets. The pedestrian lights at the corner of Pelham and Pancake are largely ineffective in allowing traffic to safely exit Pancake Lane onto Pelham, particularly at rush hours in the early morning and evening. In addition, they are at times confusing to car drivers when being activated by a pedestrian. To establish a parking area for residents of the new 4-story apartment on the north side of the existing 2-story apartment will encourage all residents of both buildings to enter and exit from Pancake Lane and will only aggravate an already significant traffic problem. The alternative would be to locate the parking area at the northeast corner of the site facing Pancake Lane and along Pelham Street. While this might eliminate or reduce the planned green space, it would encourage the residential traffic for the new building to enter and exit from Pelham Street and therefore reduce the traffic problem on Pancake Lane. Regardless of the parking option chosen, the need for a traffic light at the corner of Pelham and Pancake has been apparent for some time and will become even more so with the construction of the new apartment building. The town should also consider, in conjunction with the traffic light at this intersection, traffic calming device such as speed bumps to reduce the excessive speed often seen on that section of Pancake between Pelham and Hay Street. Correspondence from the Peddler Funeral Home. Now, there was a significant amount of correspondence submitted. Some of it relates to the previous applications, which I will not read into the record because they are not relevant to this one. The peddlers have requested an adjournment. The writer requests an adjournment to the above hearing to allow the Town of Pelham's Director of Planning to further scrutinize the site plan due to the following outstanding problems. That minor variance file A4 was heard by the Town of Pelham's Minor Variance Committee of Adjustment, and a ruling was made. The writer strongly disagreed with the ruling, and a request for appeal was made and granted by the Ontario Municipal Board. As committee is aware, that hearing has been held in abeyance until a decision on this application. The minor variances are under appeal, and it should be properly noted as such, along with the numerous outstanding addition variances are required. The applicant has submitted documentation but does not document the 5 minor variances under appeal, but rather quotes the minor variance file. When the Town of Pelham was contacted for additional information, the town's position, and whether or not the town agree, the writer received no response at that time. Application 4, 2005 had calculation errors which were either missed or ignored by the Town of Pelham. The new application and documentation has not been properly dated but was notarized. For the committee's information, that date related to when it was signed by the owners to authorize the agent. It was properly notarized, commissioned by the Secretary Treasurer in accordance with the authorized agent. The new application entitled the Zorix A3 2016 is also incomplete with additional outstanding major variances. These outstanding issues were brought forward to the Director of Planning with no resolve or response. The minor variance sign was posted on Monday, February 1st by Town of Pelham's bylaw enforcement and on the applicant's property approximately 14:30 hours. On page 1 of the Town of Pelham's application package, it states that the committee would appreciate comments by February 1st. With the Town of Pelham closing at 4:30, the town is being biased and ultimately unfair for the average citizen to make reasonable concerns and or arguments in a respectful timeline. Has the town taken into consideration anyone with a potential disability who might wish to respond to this matter? And I personally think they have not. Commercial waste disposal located close to the private residence on top of the funeral home. And previously the Town of Pelham, and specifically the town planner of the time, was informed of the existing legislation and case precedents to deny the minor variance application A4 2015 and now A3 2016, and the communication has gone unanswered and the issue brought forward ignored. And they provide a copy of their previous comments. And finally, with regard to, I just need to make sure I'm reading with regard to the right file. The zoning bylaw permits up to a 5-story building on the property. The building must conform to the characteristics of the neighborhood. The height of the building is that of a 5-story flat-roofed building. There are only flat-roofed apartment buildings in the area. This new building will be approximately 12 meters or 30.4 feet taller than the flat-roofed building on the same property. The property cannot sustain a new building and adhere to all required legislation. Due to the number of minor variance requests, all of these variances must be considered major. Why are the citizens of this community becoming victim by allowing the applicant numerous major variances and altering the characteristics of the neighborhood? And variance 1 concerns. They have highlighted that this is an 80% major variance request. Case law precedents any minor variance that is greater than the 20% cannot be considered a minor variance. Approving this variance would be a safety hazard for people walking in the area. The town has already had to post a sign informing drivers to yield to pedestrians. Has a recent vehicle and foot traffic study been completed? Do the parking spaces and access to said property conform to the local bylaws, the Ontario Planning Act, Ontario Fire Code, provincial and federal legislation, and case precedents, as well as OMB decisions? When reviewing the variance request in relation to the aforementioned regulations, it is obvious that the request does not conform to other concerns beyond this one of many major variance requests. As this is a major variance request due to the extreme variance sought and the great number of variances required for the property, the only logical conclusion is that the request be denied. Not to be mistaken for precedent which seemingly happen in this application due to the outstanding issues and infractions that ought to have been known by both the applicants, an architect, and the registered and certified urban planner of the Town of Pelham, the Planning Act requires that the 4 tests be satisfied. Is the variance minor? Is it desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure? The variance must maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan and maintain the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw being varied. The Committee of Adjustment, or OMB, on appeal must be satisfied that each and all of these tests are satisfied, failing which the application must be denied. With all of the outstanding issues with the building site and bylaw violations, how is it possible that the Town of Pelham's Planning Department and engineers are satisfied? They have included a Schedule C of the parking requirements. With regard to the variance on the 3-meter setback, they have highlighted that this is a 53.3 major variance request, and case law precedents that any minor variance greater than 20% is not considered minor. With all of the outstanding issues of the building site and any bylaw violations, how is it possible the Town of Pelham and its planning department and engineers are satisfied? There is no information provided in the application regarding a building inspector, fire prevention officer, or any engineering certification regarding the quality of the structure. No information has been submitted for this request, only an overall site plan. This lack of information to be made available should be enough to deny the variance. What is the building height? What is the building composed of? Does it have electricity wired to it? Does a garage require electricity? Was a permit obtained to run the electricity to it? What is the foundation of the shed? What is the density and depth of the foundation in the shed? Does it have a drain in the shed? And does the shed conform to all legislative and environmental standards? Is there proper ventilation for the shed? How will this affect drainage, erosion due to the additional apartment building, I guess, when subjected to the foundation in the shed? If the town is in approval of the site plan, is the town not required to ensure proper drainage and sewage is in place prior to approvals? Where is a drainage study and or report the town completed on this proposed site plan? Does this process and site plan conform to the Drainage Act? With all of the outstanding issues with the building site and bylaw violations, how is it possible the Town of Pelham's Planning Department and engineers are satisfied? And in conclusion, community growth is beneficial, but the community's character and safety cannot be compromised. The community cannot be a victim to the masses in a quest for financial gain by the corporations. Logically and sensibly, if there's a community need to address the current bylaws, then it should be accomplished by the elected officials in an open forum. I can only speculate that communities similar to ours in size and density has similar bylaws. Our request is that the application be denied by Fred and Tina Pedler. And the rest of the correspondence with that submission is regarding the previous file. There was one submission that came in today. We are the owners of the apartments at 1302 Pelham Street, which is across the street, and the sister building to 1298 Pelham Street, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Zork. On May 28th, 2015, we provided our concurrence in writing to the Committee of Adjustment that we fully support the proposed 12-unit apartment building at 1298 Pelham Street. We have reviewed with Mr. Zork his proposed plans to add another 12-unit apartment on his property, and we continue to support the minor variances that were requested in application A4 2015, as well as the current application A3 2016. We strongly support the latest application and its specific request for relief of sections 5122 of the parking area. The property enhancements at 1298 Pelham Street will be aesthetically pleasing, with additional parking on the north side Pancake rather than in front of the building. From our view, we consider the minor variances being requested reasonable and that the proposed development will integrate nicely with the existing site and neighborhood. We particularly like that no building will occur at the corner of the property at Pelham Street and Pancake Lane, and that new landscaping will enhance the site. And continue to support the variance applications. Mr. Chair, that's all the correspondence related to this file.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I just would like to get a couple of points of clarification before we move on to the representatives.
Certainly.
Mostly based on the code. So as I understand it, and you can answer me with yes or no, what we're considering tonight is allowing a minor variance to change the setbacks for an existing structure. This garage in question is an existing structure, and there's no application to move it, as you understand it?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
And then the second part we're looking at is an application to reduce the setback along, I guess that would be the south side of Pancake Lane, to allow for the parking.
Correct.
Okay. And that's all we're considering.
That's correct.
Okay. Now,
May I request clarity, if I may?
In a minute, but let's get through this, no problem. Going back to the correspondence from the planning department, and Ms. Weens, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Can you, do you have this in front of you? Okay. The first paragraph of the planning comments, can you put that into smaller words for me? I don't quite understand. Planning staff understand the application is not seeking relief from 5.122.
This is the definition of parking area.
Okay.
So the parking area includes in the definition the aisleway as being within the parking area. So the definition includes the parking, the aisleway, the parking spaces. So combined, all of that is considered to be the parking area.
Okay.
Okay, so the variance isn't to change that definition of parking area, it's just the variance is for the setback of the parking area from the property line.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So with that done, I'll move it on to the representatives. If you have any comments you'd like to add, keep in mind, let's try to focus this entirely on the two items we are considering today.
Precisely.
May I ask one question? I apologize, it's a little bit out of order, but what's documented and what is being said is different. I just want to verify that. At the beginning, minor variance 2, could you tell me what minor variance 2 is? There was just a difference. I just want to ensure that I'm on the same page. The section. I'm just,
Accessory structure.
I believe you read into the minutes, section 6.16 L2, and on the application it's 616 L1. I'm just wondering which one it is actually for.
I will confirm the zoning bylaw. It's my understanding that it's 6L1. It may have just been a typographical error on the planning report, but regardless, the variance is to allow for an existing accessory structure for two vehicle parking, located 1.41 meters from the west lot line where 3 meters is required for a parking structure. In the big black binder. So we're just going to get the zoning bylaw to ensure the sections. The variance itself doesn't change, though it's.
If it's splitting hairs, it really doesn't matter.
Okay, so just to get it in a nutshell, when we approached the committee...
A little louder, please.
What? Yeah, okay. When we approached the committee the last time on this property, we had shown you a proposal or plan that our office had developed, which would conform to the bylaws the way they currently are. And the whole philosophy or idea was to take a parking area, which we could put in the front of the building, and put it to the side of the building on the north side. So what that would achieve is that we would keep the green space that's in front. So we requested 2 variances at that time to allow it. Actually, from my understanding, the one variance that we asked for, the 3-meter setback for landscaping, wasn't necessary. That's only necessary for commercial buildings, not for a residential building like this. So what happened in the interim was it had to do with the definition of what a parking area is. So when we had it initially presented, the parking area where the cars actually park is the 7.5 meters away from the lot line. But by definition, the aisleway is part of that parking area. So that's the reason why we're here today, to request basically, philosophically, the exact same thing we requested before. Take the parking from here, put it here, create a landscape buffer that's 1.5 meters wide. In the granting of the last variance was that we were required to provide in the planting strip a row of cedars or some kind of screening landscape device that would separate the view of the parking from Pancake Lane. So it's basically for the here thing, except for just legally or technically to tie up that one part of the bylaw, which has parking lot area 7.5 meters away from the lot line. The other one was the existing parking garage. Your bylaw, you could look at it in two ways. Because there was research done of how the original permit was applied for originally, and it said accessory building as opposed to a garage. So for that reason, just to button everything up and make sure that everything that's been done here complies with your bylaws, that was the request for the second variance that we're here for today. With respect to all the other comments in those letters, I think we pretty much addressed them all in the first presentation that we made. I know your engineering department, planning department, you know, they've gone through the application thoroughly. If there's any questions that you have on anything that's been brought up from any of the letters of concerns from the residents, I'd be glad to ask them, answer them specifically, as opposed to going and go through a long list of items like we did the last time.
I did have one. If that accessory building is currently being used as a storage accessory building,
Correct.
Maintenance equipment, those kind of things, what is the plan if that turns into 2 parking spaces?
That would just be moved off-site. Yeah. Just be maintained.
Okay, so there wouldn't be another application a year after this is built for a shed or something?
You have to ask the owner. I can't answer because it's not my property. But on this particular plan too, we added those 2 extra spaces that Mr. Cook had asked for on this plan, so you can see it's that the number of parking spaces required for the property does conform with the bylaw, and that would include the parking garage structure. If you wanted to build another accessory building or do something later, I can't answer that. No.
Okay. So, reiterating what you've just said, this plan meets the bylaw as it stands for required number of parking spaces.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, that's my question there.
So the existing one-story accessory structure, is it going to be physically removed from the site?
No.
To actually, it's going to remain,
It remains there. It was built in 2004. It is a 2-car garage.
oh, okay.
And if you look at your bylaw, a garage could have setbacks the way it is existing now. But when they applied for the permit, they said accessory building. So it had a little bit different.
Just changing the definition from accessory to
Garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Barb, is that basically what we're doing?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, that's exactly what we're doing. That accessory building won't change in its physical location. It'll be used for 2 parking spots as opposed to being used for storage of equipment.
Okay. So, with that done, I'm going to open it up to the audience. I'll ask if anybody in the audience wishes to comment. If they would please approach the podium here in the middle and speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and I'm going to be pretty stern on this that we are considering these 2 applications. I think we've been pretty clear on what the 2 applications are, so please keep your comments to the 2 applications. Anybody like to go first?
I have a statement I'd just like to read.
Sure,
That's-
please approach and state your name and
The one thing was, in my comment,
before you get started, just step up to the microphone because we are recording this for posterity and
the one thing
evidence.
in my
Yeah, and
comment.
state your name and address, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Fred Sidler. My address is 1292 Pelham Street at the James L. Peddler Funeral Home. We reside above the funeral home.
Okay.
So one of my points was a bit of clarity on what I'd already brought up, just a point so that everyone was on the same page. But I'll go through it, and hopefully everyone could bear with me.
Sure.
The applicant's request
The applicants requested 7 minor variances previously, 2 additional minor variances today. While numerous site plan concerns and additional minor variances are still required. This rushed submission for minor variances, A3 2016P, is still missing vital information on the site plan. There is a footnote here. The footnote says the parking structure footings to the west of the property, size and information of the shed on the west property line, concrete walkway to the side road, east minor variance missing, fire truck turning radii as required under the fire code, parking spots 23 and 24 are in the fire lane. And this is all pertinent to the new section requesting for parking. Continuing on from that footnote. It is evident that the appellant and Town of Pelham are more concerned with the completion of this project rather than to adhering to their own policies, the official plan, zoning, and the Town of Pelham bylaws. The well-established neighboring business, the James L. Peddler Funeral Home, which is owner-occupied, and the community should be the first considered people before any other merchants. These considerations need to be paramount even before considering the abundance of minor variances required to force this development onto a property which obviously cannot support it due to the vast number. When there are these many drastic minor variance requests requiring over a 20% variance and the number of minor variances missed or ignored, how is it in the best interest of the community and the site's immediate neighbors? With this many minor variances on one site plan, how can the committee, the Town of Pelham, or the Director of Planning not consider this abundance of these requests both individually and collectively to equate major variances? Currently, the parking to the south of the property is not in compliance with section 6.16, subsection C1. Why is this bylaw not being enforced?
We're not talking about the south side of the property today?
Okay, but we are talking about the building, we are
Yes.
talking about the parking, and when we add on to parking, sir, it all congregates and affects drainage. If we're changing the basic dynamics of the parking, sir, it's going to affect drainage. It's
Right.
going to affect drainage to the south. So one thing that you're adding to the north is going to affect drainage to the south, sir, because it is not going to allow proper natural environmental drainage.
Okay, so what you're driving at there is that adding the parking to the north could impact the
Could impact
The drainage to the south.
to the south.
Okay.
And it impacts the drainage to the south because currently there's a violation of bylaw 616C1, which requires that a curb is run along the parking structure. Now, in the new plan, it is itemized and it has been corrected, other than the commercial garbage cans that for some reason are close to the parking garage and close to the neighbors. But it's not in compliance currently, which will affect drainage, and even with this new site plan, it will further be not in compliance because they didn't address that. The site plan configuration continues to ignore snow removal, which is affected to the north, south, everywhere, and drainage and water runoff concerns, as mentioned to the Director of Planning and the Town Planner in various meetings and communications. This area and community has major drainage and water runoff concerns, as documented by the Voice of Pelham. There is a history of flooding issues in this general area, especially during heavy rain. This area does not have a secured established storm water outlet, and there is no provision for an on-site storage of storm water provided on the preliminary site plan. The former Kundra property east of Stella Street and the extension of John Street has been on record as experiencing increased impact from stormwater. The town completed a study of stormwater infrastructure needs in urban area approximately 5 years ago. What did the study say about this specific area or this specific property? That needs to be brought into question. A stormwater management study should have been completed prior to the submission of the application and site plan. Where will the stormwater go? I don't want to be redundant. I noticed I was in what I had submitted in writing, and it basically just reiterates what's missing with the accessory building that they want to turn into a garage without the proper height, width, any dimensions. How can we make proper decisions? Is there not setback requirements? What is the height? Are they not required to have half the height as a setback or 3 meters? Variance 1 needs to be denied on the following basis. Inaccurate calculations when determining the setback. Community safety, grass and green space, and a sidewalk safety buffer should not be compromised for an individual's personal gain. If there is a building that will not fit on the property due to bylaw safety requirements, why is the town allowing and assisting the development and ignoring its own zoning and bylaw conditions? Variance 2 needs to be denied on the following basis. Improper minor variance sought. The minor variance sought should have been for section 6.16 L2 and is documented on the front page of the rescheduled document as 6.16 L1. Until additional information is provided by the applicant to satisfy any and all other legal and legislative requirements, it should be not denied. We just don't know enough about the building. There's other issues that we're not talking about today, but great job on the diagrams, but we're not looking at the building, so I'm not sure why the building's up. We should have a diagram of the accessory building. There is no diagram provided or documentation provided for the accessory building, only the apartment building, which I don't know why it's there because we're not supposed to talk about it today. In conclusion, our communication attempts remain in stasis with the applicant. Our meetings, resolution attempts, and information sharing has been ignored and has gone unheard and unresolved by the town director of planning. I am unsure how the 4 tests required under section 45 subsection 1 of the Ontario Planning Act has been or can be met for the site, as the minor variance application A4 2015P and A3 2016P all add up to major variances. Thank you for your time.
Okay, before you go back, you stated that you live above the Peddler
Yes, sir.
funeral home. Can you see the accessory building from your house?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you know what it looks like, you know where it is on the property.
I never went on the property, sir, to measure it. I'll gladly do that. I take photographs of things, but I've never gone on the building to measure it.
Okay, okay.
Do I
Good.
think it's too close to be? Yes. So the wording that was inaccurate was in my document that I submitted. It was when, and it should have been wait. What is the foundation of the building in question? Is it proper foundation to have a car drive on it? Nothing's been submitted. Ultimately, if we keep it right simple, nothing's been submitted. What's fire suppression like? It's now going to be a commercial garage. It's not a residential garage. It's a commercial building. It's there to make money. Have all the commercial requirements for a garage been met? If they have, excellent. Where's the documentation to support it? Transparency, that's all I'm asking for. I've never asked for anything else, sir, and I'm not going to start.
Okay, thank you. On the, and I'm going back to, on the site plan amendment, did we not state at the beginning, we don't have an approved site plan yet? Or there's still a council step coming?
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, there is actually no application yet for site plan. So the first step is the minor variances. And when there is a decision made, finally a conclusion with respect to the variances, then the applicant would be proceeding to site plan.
Okay.
So at this point in time, we do not have a site plan application.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
This is the section of the bylaw.
Oh, okay. So just for the record, since I have it now in front of me,
This is the notice of hearing, 616 L1.
okay. So 616 L1, I'll read L1 and L2 out loud. L says parking structures. 1 says where a parking area located in a structure constitutes the main use on a lot, then such structure shall conform to all the zone provisions for the zone in which the lot is located. When a parking structure area located in a, okay, and L2 says where a parking area located in a structure is accessory to a permitted use on a lot, then such structure shall conform to all provisions for accessory uses set out in subsection 1 of this section.
While reading the report earlier, the building was identified by the town clerk as an accessory building for the setback.
Right, where the parking area located in a structure, main use on a lot. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? More? Anyone else care to enter a statement? Just state your name and address.
Chair, my name is Abbott, John Abbott. I live on 9 Pickwick Place. I'm very conversant with the traffic that flows between Haste and Pelham, and my letter that I wrote to the Secretary Treasurer has been read out. I'm quite prepared to read it again if that might be necessary, but traffic, in my view, is going to be exacerbated significantly by the location of the parking lots. As it stands now, the proposal is to have the parking lot for the new building, the 4-story building, to be located on the north side of the existing building. That would mean that the traffic for both the existing building and the proposed building is really flowing through one location, and that's off Pancake Lane. As it stands now, Pancake is a thoroughfare, is a bit of a race course, in fact, at certain times of the year, certain times of the day. All of that exacerbated by this pedestrian light we have on the corner of both Haste, of Pancake and Pelham. What I'm suggesting is, one, that the location of the parking lot for the new building be reconsidered and move to, I guess, what was the original proposal, I gather from the sketches on the wall.
Okay.
As it stands now, we have a problem on Pancake Lane. And it is, as I repeat, exacerbated by the proposed parking lot locations. Further on, I've also made a recommendation that I'm sure others have before me, that a traffic light at the corner of Pancake and Pelham be considered. Not a pedestrian light, a traffic light. And also the possibility, if we're going to be faced with this traffic focus off Pancake, that speed bumps be considered on Pancake between Haste and Pelham. One question I have, while everybody seems to be very preoccupied with the technicalities of setbacks and bylaws, has any study of traffic been considered as part of this proposal?
It's kind of not the focus of this, but is that part of site plan?
It wouldn't be for a project. This is I can appreciate the neighbors' concerns, and we went through this with the last one. There is obviously on Pancake Lane a traffic issue, and it has to do, from my understanding, talking with different residents, is that there should have been a proper set of stoplights put at that corner, which there currently isn't. And Nancy had brought up that, you know, perhaps politically with your council members, discussions in that should move forward in that spirit. This minor variance committee meeting is not the forum for that. To put up 12 units on a site, if you really work with traffic studies, which our office does a lot, it's really minor in terms of any contribution that it would bring to Pancake Lane. So I can appreciate your concern, but it would be really surprising to me if the planning department or traffic from the town of Pelham would request that a traffic study be completed on this site because of the parameters or because of the scale of the proposal being made today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I as just an aside to that comment, I find it strange that traffic wasn't considered as part of a proposal like this. It's obviously going to make a significant impact. I mean, we do have an additional 12 units on top of the existing, what are approximately, I believe, 12 with the existing building. I just find it very strange. It seems to me that we've got an unfinished symphony here, and there's little consideration apparently being given except to the technicalities of exactly what does happen on the site. And I find it extraordinary. These days we're looking for more holistic approaches than these simply driven by what's good for the bottom line.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for
Chairman.
that.
I do appreciate that comment, and I'll say it again. Part of the reason we're focused on technicalities of bylaws is because that is quite literally the purpose of this meeting and this committee. I think we've exhaustively stated that there are other outlets for some of the other concerns. As I say, I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I would like to keep focused on the two minor variances on the table tonight. Approach and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Donna Schell. I live at 1297 Pelham Street. Just to clarify a few points about the traffic light, this is not the place nor the time to discuss that, despite the fact that the apartment building might have added a little bit of extra traffic to the Pancake Lane. A traffic study was done. If people would have been alert to articles in the newspaper indicating that there was potential of putting up a traffic light or pedestrian crosswalk, this has been in the process going into its third year now. People are now commenting after the fact. They did not want to get involved when this whole issue was being discussed. The fact of the matter is, traffic studies have shown that there is not enough traffic at the Pancake Lane, Pelham Street, John Street intersection to warrant a traffic light. To further clarify things, it's going to sound unusual, but I'm trying to be fair in my comments. This will be, even though we oppose the apartment building, unfortunately my next comment is somewhat supportive of it from the fact that the traffic situation itself. The situation, first of all, will only add a number of apartment buildings, not that many more cars. The fact that the current medical building is only 2 doctors versus 3 has really decreased the traffic from that specific area, particular area. There used to be far more traffic, but there's far less traffic now due to the fact that 3 doctors obviously had more patients than 2.
Right.
So this is not really the place to discuss this one project, but I felt it was necessary to clarify a few things. And I might add one comment which perhaps is not directly related to the variances that we're speaking to today. But I must point out that this whole concept of putting up an apartment building is a curious one for me as regards the signage that I have seen on the lot at the Zork apartment buildings for many years. And it got to the point where a temporary apartment for rent sign, you know, on a placard type like you would have for real estate in the old days, it was up there all the time. It got to the point that we now have a permanent sign that's been there year round. It only got removed once this whole process started. Maybe that's coincidental, don't know, but that's a fact. It is obvious that the fact as well that the apartment building across the street has had its sign up for approximately a month at some point. It's been up since January. The exact date in January? Don't know. The fact that it has not been rented out as a unit really does say something about the demand. The demand does not appear to be there for this type of apartment building in this location? Are we going to go ahead and put up an apartment building that is going to sit vacant? Obviously, there's no waiting list. If there was a waiting list, we would never see those for rent signs up. But that's not the current situation, just as we have seen over the years in our neighborhood.
Okay.
And as far as the garage, the parking garage, I think if the applicants say they will not put a storage accessory shed anywhere, I think that should be in writing. It's not like in a few years down the road, oh, well, you know, things have changed, we really do need one. If you mean it, say it, put it in writing. As long as you own it, or even if you sell it, other buildings will not be put up, whether they're accessory sheds or otherwise.
Okay.
And I guess the other point is, it was applied for as an accessory shed, and I noted in my submission, if you want to change your mind, so be it, but comply to everything and not look for a variance for every single thing. This should have been brought up with the very initial presentation. It seems like, let's try to slide something by again. Well, just one more thing. Another meeting, just one more. When do these one mores add? It really makes it appear that this whole process from the applicants has been, I would say, very inefficient. Or else we wouldn't be here again today.
Right.
That's all I have to say for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Before we do round two, is there anybody else that'd like to approach? No? Okay.
I just have a copy I'd like to submit of my verbal statement, just to make sure we have complete clarity on my position. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Another 5-second comment. There are a number of minor variances that still are outstanding. I wish we would just deal with them all at once, and we could look at that as a whole. That was brought forward to Director of Planning. It's unfortunate we weren't able to resolve it.
Right.
You already have a copy?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I didn't make enough, sorry.
That's, we can share. I'm going to make just this the absolute last call for comments from anybody in the audience. Okay. Thank you. I will ask the members if you have any questions or comments.
My only comment would be that we fully understand this site, at least I do, because all three of us have been present for the original application. And from what I hear today, we're not really dealing with anything other than certain technicalities. And I certainly wouldn't want personally to see a parking lot in the front of Pelham Street there. I think that you provided us last time with 3 different plans.
Yeah.
And I still think that the plan you submitted before is the correct plan for the aesthetics in the streetscape. That's my feeling at this point. I understand, though, that the accessory structure isn't coming with any details, but correct me if I'm wrong. The chief building official would take care of that and any factors that need to be basically
Right.
ruled along with the bylaw. The bylaws for that accessory structure. So we're not moving it. We're not altering it. In terms of height, I guess one question I would have, would it be the same height as the new accessory structure carport? Or would it be?
It's basically the same height as the existing carport that's there now. There's an existing carport that
Correct.
exists here, so it's basically the same height as what's there now.
But you haven't come forth with those details, as Mr. Sidler.
We did
Wished
do
you
that,
had.
but your bylaw in terms of an accessory building, this is from my recollection, is that its setbacks are specifically set out in the bylaw. It
Right.
doesn't make a relationship with building height or anything with it, as long as it's an accessory to the primary function or the apartment building in this case. So, how would I say, we did submit, this is the drawing here. We did not draw the existing parking structure. We did, or the garage, but we did draw the covered parking area.
Right.
And it's basically these proportions that you see here.
We had that last time.
That last time.
We had that
I
last time.
own the building, okay? Now, you guys put me on track. I did said exactly how I built that garage. You can put that on the statement. I got the permit. I thought it's a garage. The previous guy who was here, chief building inspector, was Ernie Cormay. Ernie Cormay put the accessory building, okay? Between accessory building and the garage, there is no difference. It's the same thing. I got the double garage door, 16-foot double garage door. The heights are same. Everything is same. Instead of 2x4 construction, we got even 2x6, which is overdone. So what Mr. Sidler is asking, the garage fits like that. The accessory building is built is a garage, and it fits like that. And I got the permits. I brought it, even original permits. I got the final inspection done on it. I got everything. Everything is documented here in the city hall.
And that, sir, through you, Mr. Chair, how long ago was that put up?
2004.
That
we
was
started.
2004.
Yes, sir.
And there have been no changes to the requirements for since 2004, since we are now changing one word from accessory building to garage. We're dealing with semantics here. Are there any changes that we know of?
Mr. Chair, through you, there has been no changes to the bylaw since that time with
Okay.
regards to setbacks for that building.
Okay, thank you. That
That's
answers my one question.
See what happened.
Go ahead.
I don't know what happened.
Sure.
In 2012, I do believe that there was different, how should I say it, requirements perhaps, or the building codes have changed in 2012. We would like it, all we ask for him is just to prove that it meets it, not to say, I'm on trial, I did it. Please prove it. That's all we ask. We're trying to show, you're trying to show the community that you're trying to be above board to do things properly, but it seems like, let's slide this one by, let's slide something else by, let's slide something else by. You know where you're coming. It should, excuse me, when I'm done, you'll have full opportunity. For example, why was that accessory shed not in the original drawings? We're having drawings of the whole property. Why leave it out? Was
But we're not.
But what I'm saying is, what we should do is just, if the building codes have changed since they have changed in 2012, please provide the proper evidence that everything is up to par for a new use of this building. And if it was mislabeled initially, they intended it to be a garage, but it was mislabeled as an accessory shed, perhaps that was the time to change the paperwork back in 2004.
I do appreciate that, and I'll put a little bit of summary comments together, and it is kind of related, but I'm a professional engineer and I practice out of Fenwick, and for an existing structure, I guess the burden of proof is does the performance of the building decrease in the new use, and I think that would be a pretty difficult case, especially because through the codes, the loading, the pounds per square foot required on the floors and the footings is the same for a storage shed or a garage or anything else. So, I mean, again, I understand where you all are coming from. When I'm considering this decision, that's part of the background information that I'm going to use. And then on the other side of that, as Mr. DeMyrtle said, we are certainly residents of this area. My youngest son goes to the Montessori school across the street, so I'm literally at this intersection twice a day at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 3:30. So, yeah, I mean, I understand I'm there, and like I say, so when we do consider these decisions, it's as townsfolk and people who are in the area and using the area and have a pretty good idea of what it's like. So, Mr. Cook, do you have any comments? Did we get through yours?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman. I've been out and had a look at the site. I've seen by the drawings. I was concerned at one time that there may have been a necessity to maybe widen Pancake Lane and have some intersection improvements at South Pelham Street. But looking at the drawings and the existing property lines, there does seem to be, or there is apparently a sufficient width on Pancake Lane on the south side so that if we had to relocate the sidewalk closer to the property line, you could. There does appear to be a sufficient right-of-way to put in a right-hand turn lane, or maybe even a left-hand turn lane on Pancake Lane at some time when the intersection is improved with a full traffic signal set, which I agree should have been installed rather than a pedestrian, but what's done is done. And now it's up to our council to sustain a little bit of pressure, and maybe they'll see that foresight to put some money in a budget to actually rebuild the pedestrian signal into a full traffic signal set. I did have the previous variances that were granted concern over drainage. I also have noted your comments related to drainage. I really don't think that the variances we're dealing with today will impact drainage at all. And I think drainage will be dealt with through the site plan process, which, understanding from our director of planning, a formal site plan has not yet been put forth. So I think some of the issues that have been brought up today will be solved during the site plan process, and maybe residents in the general area can have a little input on to their politicians and see if we can't get the traffic signal issue resolved. And maybe even the drainage issue with a new storm sewer on Pelham Street sometime in the future. And those are my only comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I think I've said some of my piece through here. Like I say, I'm in this area more than just for the regular inspection. I've spent some time taking a hard look at all of this, as late as 3:15 today. And we did bring this up last time. The applicant has the legal right to plonk a 5-story brick monster in the middle of this property.
In the front.
At the very front of this property, with no need for zoning amendments or anything else. There was the concern coming off the face, but that's well within their rights. And what I see is somebody trying to put something together that's going to blend a little better, and I guess not just the intersection, up and down the street, right? We go to the south side of Pedlar, and there's vegetation a lot further forward than this property is going to be. And once we get on the other side of the twin building, the properties come a lot closer to the road as well. So when we consider nature and character of the surrounding community, it's not just the 4 properties right at the intersection. So I guess that's my kind of summary comments when we move into this decision. What I've looked at, what we've considered in it. So with that, I'll ask if the members are ready to render a decision through a formal motion. Keeping in mind that if there's anything you'd like to add, move, modify that's on there, you're well within your rights to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the granting of the severance application A3 2016.
Variance.
Or variance, sorry,
No problem.
variance A3 2016, Stojan and Mary Zorak. On the condition that the applicant be required to obtain all the necessary building permits prior to construction to the satisfaction of the chief building official. And I don't know if, in this particular case, whether building permits are going to be required other than for the entire project.
Yes, building permits will be required, along with site plan approval.
Okay. Do you want to read the reasons into the record?
Reasons: minor previously approved landscape buffer will provide screening to aid from the street to minimize the impact. Second point, intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. There's adequate space available to accommodate the on-street parking, and there's adequate separation of parking from the street line to allow for the buffer space. That's the 1.5 meter buffer space. Intent of the official plan is maintained. Sufficient parking and amenity area is maintained. It's desirable. Sufficient parking space will be provided for the residents and visitors. Actually, the 2 parking stalls that were inside what were termed the accessory building is actually a garage, so there are 2 physical parking stalls. This application is granted without prejudice any other application in the town of Pelham.
Okay. So do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
And I will put it to a vote. All in favor of the, all in favor?
With the setback.
For the, yes,
It's the first variance.
for the first variance.
First variance.
Yes, for
The
variance
first
1.
setback,
All in
yeah.
favor of variance 1.
Yes.
Okay. And then we can move on to,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
we'll move on
accessory
to the one for the accessory building. Can I have a motion?
one. I'll move that we grant it to be used for parking, that accessory structure. And again, that to obtain all necessary building permits prior to the continuation of any construction to the satisfaction of the chief building inspector or official. I feel that it's minor because the structure is already, it's there, it's pre-existing, and it has achieved a degree of screening with the adjacent properties, so I see nothing wrong with that. That the adequate setbacks and mature trees still will serve a buffer at this point. And the intent of the official plan is definitely maintained. There's sufficient parking again with the amenity space, particularly the aesthetics that we will see from the point of view of South Pelham Street in particular, from the north and going north and south. And that it is desirable because the parking structure will assist in minimizing the impact of the parking on the site. And the application has been granted without any prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Motion carried.
Okay, motion carried.
I can see what happened. See what happened.
Thank you all very much. I will, before we move on to our next item, I will just remind you all that there are still site plan amendments. This does still need to come before council. You know, there are valid concerns being raised. Maybe not. There are valid concerns being raised. So, you know, follow along. You're certainly citizens of this town, and you absolutely have the right to have those heard.
We have council.
And back to my agenda, which. Oh. So we, as a committee,
Pardon?
And it's about those street lights. So just to clarify, none of these people were involved or wanted to become involved until the crosswalk was
But
put
you
up.
said that.
The crosswalk was put up as a result of pressure from the Pelham Active Transportation community. My husband and I have been involved since it was first brought up into the newspaper. Traffic studies were done at both at Spruceside and at Penny Lane. Traffic lights did not meet the same. There wasn't enough vehicular traffic. What has happened, and council now realizes, and what has happened is we have abuse of the pedestrian crosswalks, which is resulting in traffic issues now. Because one night, I just looked out the window, it's a Friday night, a couple of teenagers were out there. I looked, I thought, oh, are they crossing? Oh, so I thought, wait a minute, they crossed back and forth. I watched them for 10 minutes. Who knows how long they were out there? They went back and forth. You know who's the biggest abuser? We have a lot of seniors walking dogs. We've got a fellow 4 houses north of the intersection. He can properly cross Pelham Street in front of his house, but he walks down the sidewalk, and 4 houses later, down the street, he has to press back. And if he sees cars coming, he'll press it.
You push it,
If he
yeah.
doesn't see cars coming, he will wait for cars. And there are times when no cars are coming, he can't be bothered to wait, he pushes it and continues to walk kitty corner across that street. And it's causing issues because the traffic will now stop. So anybody on Pelham Street wanting to get out of their driveway to make a left-hand turn will wait through a whole line of cars depending on how busy the traffic was at that time of day.
That's right, yeah.
So it has actually caused issues. It's just the same sidewalk is causing issues, and this is what the Pelham Active Transportation Committee wanted again. From Port Robinson Road, right down here, we have the water issues.
So you're going to council, right,
so,
with all
yes.
these issues, because we can't,
We can't,
I
yeah.
have been to council.
yeah, well, you have to get these people there.
Yes.
These people are just kind of confused, other than putting speed bumps on Pancake Lane, because they see something that has come up, they didn't want to become involved initially. So now, each of these lights is $90,000, and if you want to change it over, that's $180,000, because none of it can basically be used.
Use the game.
Oh, we're 180,000.
Yep.
So we've got-
Between the 3 sets of lights and the sidewalk, the town has successfully spent $525,000 or $550,000.
Right.
And the sidewalk is going to be taken away once Pelham Street is reworked. And it's unfortunate that it's causing all these issues in the meantime. And you know, it's interesting, everybody comes in, they had the neighbors to come again to try to get the sidewalk extended from Pancake Lane and to Quaker Road.
Right.
This was not the place, that was not the place to bring up that issue at a budget meeting. But let's just say someone who runs the town allowed for it, and these people knew that they were gonna be allowed to speak because they went around to the neighborhood, put out a petition, please come to the meeting to support us. Nobody came to support the traffic.
What's really interesting, what's really interesting is I've seen
This is also
people
being
drive up.
Yes, we are, guys. We are still being recorded. We are still in committee. We have a couple of procedural items that we need to get taken care of.
Your whole conversation is recorded.
Thank you.
That was all recorded because we haven't adjourned yet.
Okay, gentlemen, we have some minutes for approval. We have our hearing hearing for 2015. No, she was reasonably okay.
So all three of you are there. I'm just going to move in a second.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Cook?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Cook seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye, aye.
July. Okay, and we also had a hearing on the 1st of December. I was not there. So I need a motion from anyone who was there. Mr. DeMyrtle?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? There, do I vote?
It's okay, no, we haven't.
Okay, you have a
You
majority
want-
anyway.
We only
Okay.
need the 2, correct?
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
the majority
you
still,
beat me,
right?
exactly. Okay. And with that, we have reached the end of our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Is it up? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. It splits evenly, so, yeah, thank you very much. We